Oh, I think I'm live. How exciting. If anyone can see or hear me, can you just write something in the chat? Because I've never gone live on YouTube before, and I think I'm alone. So I'm just going to wait for like a minute or two for people to join me. Otherwise, I'm just talking to myself, which is what I normally do when I film videos. So if you're here, say hello in the chat. Be great to get your name and where you're from. And if you've got any questions, put them in the chat. I've got a few questions to answer. So if we've got time and I have the energy, I'll answer your questions if you put them in the chat. So I'll wait for a few moments to see if anyone joins me, and then we'll get started. This is exciting. I don't know what's happening. I think people are here. It says there are people here. So maybe I'll do that. I just want to quickly speak about this wild energy that we're in. I don't know if you've seen the Schumann resonance recently with regards to the anomalies that have been displayed. I think it's at like 190, whatever it is, the ways in which it's read. It's never been consistently that high before. And the imagery looks like strands of DNA. And when I sat with it this morning, and I was absorbing the frequencies from the Schumann resonance image to find out, from my own kind of intuitive place what was going on, I was hearing that it's this unification process that I've been feeling coming in is being integrated more and more. So it's lots of inner union, divine masculine, divine feminine unions coming in physically as well as internally. It's a very, very, very potent time. Hi, trees. Yay, there are people here. Cool. So yeah, I'm mentioning the energies because I'm feeling it today. I thought I was going to need to nap in the daytime, but I'm here, so I'm going to soldier through, and then we'll probably nap straight after this. We'll go to sleep. So I've got a few people in the house. If you'd like to tell me your name and where you're from, I'd love to know. And in the meantime, I'm going to get started with answering these questions. So I had a couple of questions come in. The first question that was submitted, so for those that aren't aware, I opened up like on Instagram and my YouTube community tab, just opening up the opportunity for people to submit questions that they had to me regarding anything, regarding my own journey, regarding their spiritual path in general, or anything else. I think. Hi, Leslie. No problem. I'm so glad to connect with everyone. It's beautiful. I like these like interactive community experiences because we're humans interacting with humans, and it makes it a little bit more kind of connective. So yeah, grateful. Thank you for joining me live. So yeah, the idea with this live was really just to answer your questions and to just go a little bit deeper. We reached 1,000+ subscribers on my YouTube channel. I think when I was dealing with the concussion, so I wasn't really paying attention to what was happening on YouTube. And then we hit 1,000+ subscribers. So thank you so much for being part of this community. I love YouTube so much. I know that it's Conan is what I'm called. Love it. Hi, Conan. Oh, I've seen Conan. I've seen you in on some comments, and always appreciate your perspective. Hi, Lisa. Lisa, yours is my first question. So so I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, I could just babble on. So I'm going to get started answering these questions. If you've got any other questions for me, if we've got time at the end, I'll answer them. Okay. So this first question is from Lisa. And it says, what can you do when Kundalini gets stuck somewhere, e.g. the heart center? So this is a process that I've been moving through, and I'm currently still moving through at the moment. And anyone that's been on a Kundalini awakening knows that we are having to deal with very visceral blocks in our energy body, especially if we haven't done that much purification work before the Kundalini starts to rise. When she hits up against resistance in the body, it can be really agonizing and uncomfortable. So I've particularly in the last year been dealing with solar plexus and heart center, lots of blockages in both of those centers that are being worked through and purified. So, in the simplest way to answer that, for me, all the Kundalini is asking us to do, she's bringing awareness to anything that is not our true nature, right? So, when we are dealing with these blocks, to me, there's two ways we can deal with anything in the energy body that is based in fear, resistance, that feels like stuck energy, like stagnant energy. We can both observe it and transmute it with just the power of witnessing presence, which is something I shared about in my recent YouTube video about the power of presence and how that started to really alchemize what was going on with my concussion. So actually being present with the sensation and what the sensation is communicating is really important. So let's just say right now I've got some density in my heart center. There's lots of other great things happening in my heart center too, but there's also a lot of density that's being chucked up. I personally feel that this density is not a personal density, so to speak. It's a density that I think is being felt by the feminine collective. And obviously, as part of that expression, I'm feeling it. And for me, it feels like a deep, deep grief at the pain that has been endured by states of separation, by being in separateness for so long, not just in this lifetime, but for millennia on this planet, and all of the pain and the injustice and the horrors that have been, undertaken from states of separation. Just feeling the grief, like the deep grief of that, and the longing to return to a unified state of being, which is our true nature. So that's been very present in my experience recently. And I think that that's being kicked to the surface because I'm having other experiences in my physical reality that are infusing my heart with a lot of light, love, and expansion. So the light is going to illuminate the shadows, right? It's going to shine a light on the stuff that doesn't feel so good in the body. Hi, Connor. Oh, Connor, I forgot to write down your question about the bananas. Connor, of all the questions you could have asked me, I don't have any bananas at home and I'm not hungry, so I won't be eating any bananas on this live. I'm sorry in advance. If you've got another question, you can put it here. So, with regards to the heart center blockages or any blockages, it requires, it's really, really challenging because anyone that's been through a Kundalini awakening, especially in the heart center, it can feel like you're dying. The level of tension, the level of contraction, the level of pressure, the heart palpitations, the racing heart. It can feel this. So this is where my mind goes when this is really when there's a lot happening in this center, and the heart center goes through these experiences when there's an expansion trying to happen, and there are limitations or subconscious restrictions coming up to be seen, right? So it's like we want to expand, but if we want to expand, we actually have to move the stuff that's stopping the expansion out of the way. And so this stuff gets kicked up, and at a physical level, when you're going through this kind of when you're trying to alchemize this kind of block, it can feel so physically terrifying. So the energy that I've been connecting with when I connect to this block in my heart is terror. It's a terror. It's so terrifying to actually face this block. And I think that that's partly because the density of it, the actual emotional density that is asking to be witnessed, was from an experience that seeded terror for me. So it's obviously not very comfortable to witness. But that's what this energy is asking us to do in order to be purified. It's not a passive process. It's not us just kicking back and, just take it from me. This energy is us in an awakened form. So we are co-creating this process of purification. Therefore, we have to be active in the alchemizing of that energy. So with the heart center, like when I'm feeling into density, it's like, can I hold the fear I'm feeling around being with this density? And can I also just expand my awareness beyond this fear to just hold my presence and awareness with this density and really being with it? So I want you to imagine, like, wherever you're feeling a block in your body, can you descend all your awareness into that space? The pain is at the back of my heart. So to me, if it's at the back of the heart, this is really deep rooted stuff. That's a very similar process to me as well. The more work I'm doing, the further into my heart this pain, this grief, this terror resides. Lisa, I know you and I have had a lot of parallels in our journey. We're clearing not just for ourselves, but our ancestral lines. This is really deep rooted pain, terror, grief that we are being asked to witness and alchemize on behalf of those that have already passed and on behalf of the collective. So, um, when we're working with this level of energetic work, but also this level of pain and trauma, it does require us to have sturdy nervous systems. So we can only feel to the capacity that we can hold that feeling. So it's kind of like a balancing process of being with the density, being with, like, experiencing, witnessing, feeling without resistance, without judgment, whatever it is that we're feeling in the body, the block, descending our consciousness into it, just being in the middle of it, being in the middle of that density, not seeing it as separate to, because that just perpetuates the suffering, actually holding that presence with, holding that pain or trauma with the love, unconditional love and awareness, being with that, not easy. So if we find that we're descending into anxiety, terror, fear, and it becomes too much to handle, that's a sign that the nervous system, it has kind of reached capacity. We can either draw on tools at that point to kind of neutralize whatever nervous system dysfunction is being kicked up, or it's a sign that we need to expand our nervous system capacity to hold this before we go into it again. So what I will say in terms of my personal process in alchemizing these blocks that have been very helpful for the heart chakra particularly: daily cacao. I've been journeying with cacao, mama cacao, for probably 3 months nearly on a daily basis now. That combined with daily Kundalini yoga has rapidly transformed the center of my heart space center, but also my consciousness in general. So post concussion, once the physical symptoms of the concussion subsided, the dizziness, the confusion, etc., something happened in that process with my third eye and crown, where a spaciousness has opened up, where I'm having very prolonged states of thoughtlessness and it's like, to the degree that my ego keeps judging it and saying, am I dying? It's so still. My field feels so light and my mind is so still a lot of the time that my ego comes in and judges it and says, am I dying? Because there's normally noise, there's normally weight here. So my personal process has been drawing on plant medicine, namely cacao. You can work with whatever tools you're called to, but for me, it's been cacao and daily Kundalini yoga. The Kundalini yoga directly works with strengthening the nervous system. So it's obviously, for on a Kundalini awakening journey, a very helpful, powerful tool to support expanding nervous system capacity to hold whatever's coming up, and also beginning to just move this energy beyond just the witnessing process, which does alchemize, but sometimes we need to draw on other tools too. So to me, it's a blend of being active, in terms of like using our tools to direct and move the energy, and also kind of being just the being witnessing presence that is somewhat inactive, if you like, or passive. It's like the masculine container of just the witnessing with the dynamism of the feminine, this marriage, and just asking your system, what does it need? Do I actually just need to be with this grief and feel it? And that might mean sobbing your heart out, and this is one of the big blocks I found in this whole process. The amount I have cried during this purification process, I've got to points where I'm like, I'm sick of crying. I am sick of crying. But there is so much, and I'm like, is it normal for a person to cry and grieve and feel this much pain? But the way I think about it is every single expression that we did not allow ourselves to be witnessed in, whether that was anger, sadness, whether we swallowed down words, anything that we denied, which wanted to be moved through and up and out into the world. And we said, no, you can't shut it down. we shamed it, we denied it, we avoided it. Where's that energy going? It's stored in the system. It hasn't moved. It hasn't flowed as spirit intended. That energy has to move. It has to come up and out. So whether we do it now or we do it in 10 years or we do it in another life, that energy has to move. Yes, quite the drop of a hat. Yeah. And it's like at this point, what I'm realizing is we don't even need to know why we're feeling the way we're feeling. For most of my journey, I was so intent on being intellectually clued up on why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, right? I wanted to know what's the root of this. Is it past life? Was it that thing from my childhood? And while conscious awareness can help, the level that we're clearing now, the 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 rate at which we're clearing now, the rate, this process is speeding up. And I'm sure those of you that are like tapped in, tuned in, turned on, you can feel it. This alchemical process that humanity is going through of awakening and remembrance, it's speeding up. We are alchemizing stuff that's from so long ago that we may not have actually lived ourselves, that we are clearing on behalf of our ancestral line. I've also realized, I went on a mushroom journey. I haven't worked with plant medicine much in my experience. I think, Conan, do you use hallucinogenics? Oh, you've just asked that. That's funny. Um, I tend not to use plant medicine that much. That was partly a trauma response because I used to smoke cannabis when I was a teenager, and then I had a really horrible experience, which was self-induced. It was me being irresponsible with the plant, and just abusing it. And then I had a horrible experience, and it left me. It was very traumatizing. So I kind of then went really anti any drugs or substances. But I will say that in the last 6 months, I was living with housemates who run mushroom retreats and work closely with plant medicine, with rapé, and other other things. So it was like a bit of a mirror for me to see, like, actually my resistance to plant medicine is partly a trauma response. So when I was on this most recent mushroom trip, I think I took like 1.5 grams. I've only ever microdosed before that, and I was still going on wild rides even with a microdose. So when I did the 1.5 grams, it was a very interesting experience. It's kind of like being in an AI simulation. And you know how the AI simulations are just everything is connected and one image merges into another. It was like living that. I was in the middle of just this. They were just showing me that, I say there were lots of little guides in this journey, little teachers that kept popping up, and they were showing me that everything is connected. Like every physical expression, the tree turns into a bush, that turns into a mountain, that turns into a person, that turns into an animal. It's like they were showing me the unified field by moving me through the unified field and showing me how it presents physically. And one thing that they said to me during that trip, if you like, or that experience, was that it was really interesting. There were like two wrecking balls. They took me up to the sky, and there were these two little men sat on wrecking balls in the sky, really random. And they said, the reason that your weight feels so heavy is because you've taken on collective karma. That's something you agreed to in this life. And then I felt like a jolt in my stomach, and I dropped down from heaven, and I don't know what happened after that. I think maybe I fell asleep. But I've always felt that I have a connection to the collective, and and I'm not alone. I know that many star seeds and light workers, some of us came in and we agreed on for whatever reason, on whatever terms, to be conduits for things that we could process on behalf of the collective. Yeah, use with reverence. Absolutely. So that's been a big journey for me. It's really moving from like abusing plant medicine to having no relationship with plant medicine and being really against it because I didn't have an understanding of what happened, to re-educating myself, and really understanding, like everything, plants have a consciousness. And this has been coming through really, really loudly for me lately. Everything has consciousness. That's something that I want to share, but I don't know if we'll have time for me to share that. Shall I share it now? Okay, I'm gonna quickly share it now. Maybe I'll make another video about it. I'm getting some past life remembrances come through from Egypt, and one thing I was told, because I was guided, I was guided to go back to Egypt. Basically, that I need to go back. It's very important for my activation and my remembrance process in this life. Um, one thing I was shown and told during that experience, when I was kind of like, I was taken to temples. I was told what temples to go to. It's mad. And one thing I was told is that there is a there is a dynamic exchange that happens. We think that we're humans and that these are buildings or plants or animals, and that there's some degree of hierarchy, right? Because of how it's presented in separation in like physical form. What I was shown was that there is no separation between us and a grain of sand, between us and a piece of stone, between us and a plant. And so that when we return as activated and awake beings to these stargates, when we go back to very highly potent parts of the planet, I was told they're stargates. So places where kind of the veil is thin, and a lot of kind of sacred space has been cultivated, and a lot of this is a very high energy and frequency there. When we go to these spaces, a dual activation happens. It's not just the human that gets activated. Once we've reached a degree of remembrance in our energy field, we also reactivate the land. We charge the land charges us with remembrance. So it's this dynamic process. So if you've been called to go and visit sacred sites, the guidance I received is because the earth is remembering just as we're remembering. So it's like we're all in this ascension, awakening, remembrance process together. So it's like when we go back to these sacred sites and we follow that guidance, we're also helping the land to remember and awaken and raise in consciousness too. And that this is how we're going to continue to terraform the planet from being so dense and being so anchored in that vibration of fear. We're going to move it by actually co-creating with the earth and with nature, and recognizing that it's a unified field expressing, in a myriad of different ways, but ultimately it's the same divine equal consciousness that is animating all of it. There's no hierarchy. um so what I'm like, I just go off on tangents because I like to talk. I don't know what took me there. We were talking about plant medicine. So yes, settings is really important when using plant medicine, definitely. So intention, so that's something that cacao has really taught me. I was initially, I got the guidance to start working with cacao, and it's very interesting because I have had like a chocolate addiction, sugar addiction, but really specifically a chocolate addiction all of my life. And the guidance I got last year was that I have come into this life to work with specifically the spirit of cacao, but my because of the trauma I experienced as a kid and because of the wonky conditioning in place, I misinterpreted my relationship with chocolate or cacao. And then I'm engaging in the lower expression of that, which is eating junk chocolate, right? The higher expression of engaging with the plant, with the spirit of cacao, is to work with her as medicine. So I got the guidance to work with her and to not use, any spices, just no sweeteners, just really feel and learn her frequency. So this started, I don't know when I started sitting, where are we now? Maybe the end of March, beginning of April, I started sitting every single day in sacred space, drinking cacao. And what has been mind blowing, bearing in mind, cacao is not a hallucinogen. It works with the subtle body in a very gentle way. It works really specifically with the heart center to de-armor. And if you've ever drunk cacao before, you may have not felt anything, and you may have kind of wondered what's the point of it. And what I've realized with this medicine is we're so used to like having very in our faces, like instant gratification, right? So when we're dealing with these subtle realms of energy, they require a deeper level of attunement to energy. They require us to be more still to receive the deeper messages. And so when I've been working with cacao, what's been incredible to witness is as I built my relationship with her and I set my intentions, I brewed her with intentions, I charged her with energy, I sat in sacred space every single day, and I continue to do so up until today. What's been happening is I don't even need to drink the cacao anymore for her frequency to start opening my heart. And we had an experience, my friend and I, co-hosted a cacao breathwork meditation circle, maybe like 3 weeks ago, possibly a little bit longer. And we had two of our friends there as well holding space with us. So there were four of us all together. And we all helped to brew this cacao, and we all charged it with our intention. And we all sat around and we sent love to the cacao, and we asked for the highest to unfold in the space that we'd created. And I was leading the cacao drinking part of this ceremony. And so I was stirring her. And as I was stirring, I got the guidance to start doing some embodiment practices. And I was like, "Oh, that's a bit weird," because, we were just about to go into drinking cacao and being quite still. And I look over, and one of my sisters who was holding space with me started to move her body. And she was like, "Yeah, I got the guidance too. To do the body work, you need to do it. Just do it. Trust the guidance." So I was like, "Okay, we're going to do some body work." And within 10 minutes of starting to do some heart breathing and getting people to just start moving into their bodies and being attuned to their own, somatic process, there were maybe 11 people in the circle. Six of them already within 10 minutes were having really massive emotional releases. I'm not taking credit for that. For me, what created the capacity for people to feel so held and safe and to de-armor was the cacao, as well as our shared intention, and the fact that I think the women that I'm working with are also very heart-centered. It created like this container of safety, and cacao is so powerful at de-armoring the heart. And I've witnessed this for myself as I've been like, sitting with her every day. I'm noticing like I don't even need to drink. And that's what happened during that ceremony. We didn't even need to drink the cacao for her medicine to be felt. Her consciousness was felt in the space just by charging her with intention and establishing that conscious connection. So sorry, Lisa, this is a really roundabout way of answering your question. But so for me, this is a personal thing. We have to kind of see what works for us and recognize that we'll probably have to adapt and change what's working for us as we evolve. But up until this point, working with cacao daily, journaling, because that's my main way of doing shadow work. So once what will tend to happen is I'll drink the cacao, or I'll just have the cacao, I'll start crying, or emotion will start moving. I'll let it move, and then if there's anything else, I'll start journaling on and self-dialoguing and asking, what is it that I'm feeling? I'm feeling like this closing, this tension, and I try and like not just I don't like not just name it as like, oh, I've got a block. It's like, can we personify the block almost? Can we make it more than just a block? Can we actually recognize that that block is an aspect of us that has not yet been witnessed? So, what does that aspect feel like? Is it sharp? Is it contracted? Is it small? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it black? Is it white? And just starting to like bring that aspect to life and really kind of witnessing it as another aspect of consciousness, if you like. And so I'll start to journal. And then I will usually then go into my Kundalini yoga practice. And I've been doing Kriya for 40 days now to open the heart. And sometimes I'll do a second practice to do a nervous system, like to strengthen my nervous system, because the Kundalini is moving through me a lot at the moment. And my channel's very open, and there's a lot of frequencies coming through. So it can be like it's important for me to be really grounded and to strengthen my nervous system. So in answer to your question, Lisa, being with this energy in the most intentional, pure-hearted, loving presence we can cultivate is, I think, the prerequisite to anything else. And then finding ways to feel safe enough to be with that energy, whether that is utilizing a plant medicine or cacao, whether that is like cacao, whether that is joining a sister circle so you have the space to be witnessed in whatever you need to feel, whether it's in a completely different modality. Another one that I utilize regularly, EFT tapping, really helps again to just begin the process of like gently moving that energy through the system. And I found that saying out loud what it is that I'm feeling for whatever reason really moves the energy for me. So, say I'm feeling like deep grief in my heart space, I will actually say it out loud, like, I'm feeling so much pain. I'm feeling so much pain. And it's like I'm really just honoring that aspect that is feeling in so much pain, so much grief, so much fear. Like, I'm in so much panic right now. It feels completely overwhelming. And I'm giving that aspect a voice, and I'm moving it out of separation and beginning the process of integrating it. So, you know, honoring it with our awareness, validating it, seeing it, witnessing it, utilizing the tools we need, while simultaneously building nervous system capacity to hold space for this stuff and using whatever tools you want to for that. But for me, it's been primarily cacao, Kundalini yoga, and then some EFT and journaling alongside that, alongside having beautiful people in my life that help to hold me when I need holding. Doing a cacao ceremony for the first time this weekend. Any advice for a beginner? Well, hopefully you'll have mindful practitioners that can guide you through that. But I would say to really connect with the spirit of cacao and to get the most out of that experience, it's a sensual experience. So it requires you to drop out of the head. We can't experience the magic of cacao while we're up here. The energy of the heart is obviously anchored in body awareness. For us to be able to feel the expansiveness of what cacao can do for the heart, we have to be in the body so we can feel heart energy. So the number one thing I would suggest is, even maybe before the cacao ceremony, beginning a process of just like meditating, just allowing yourself to descend out of mind consciousness. And then when you have your cacao, I'm just going to use this jar of water as an example. Like when you've got your cacao, hopefully your teachers, guides, practitioners will guide you through this process. But closing your eyes and experiencing her sensually. So I mean like the aroma of her. And actually, because we feel energy through the body, we feel frequencies, vibrations, energetic information via the body, and then it's the mind that has the capacity to translate and assimilate that information. So it's like, let your body receive the frequencies of her, let your body receive her energy and just feel it, and set that intention. Like, I want to connect with this plant teacher. I'm open to receiving her guidance, and then connect with her sensually rather than seeing her as a drink. Imagine that you are interacting with a consciousness. So smell her, feel the heat of the cacao, notice when you're looking at her the colors, the shapes. Like, begin to really connect with her in presence. And every sip you take, I see a lot of the time for beginners, they'll drink cacao like they're drinking a hot chocolate. Every sip is sacred. Every sip is allowing you to potentially de-armor, to soften, to come back to heart consciousness. So with every sip, feeling it, asking the cacao, please go to the places within me, please open the places within me that need de-armoring, and allowing, just feeling her moving through your system, allowing yourself to soften with every breath. So just, I mean, I'm going to compare it to like making love, but being really, really mindful and sensual with that experience, like you're making love, right? As opposed to like just fucking something and getting it over and done with. Really be with her, really be present with her. And it may take a little while to establish that resonance. You may feel it very quickly. The more open you are and the more connected to your body wisdom you are, the more you will experience the benefits her more quickly. I'm actually planning to do an online cacao ceremony. I was going to do it in June and then I concussed myself. So keep an eye on that if anyone wants to do an online cacao ceremony with me. I'm going to be planning one for July. Okay, moving on. You know me, I like to talk. Where are we? So thank you for that one, Lisa. We've got Sarah. Can you tell us a bit about your journey? When you started to awaken, when and how you discovered you had gifts for channeling and receiving messages from high dimensions, and what form these messages come to you in, visions, voices, etc. I'm going to take a sip of orange juice before I answer that because it's a meaty one. My body's really craving orange juice at the moment. Okay, let's start with the first part. When did I start to awaken? I feel like the first experience I had of becoming truly self-aware was when my first long-term relationship dissolved when I was 21. So I had a partner who I was with for about 3 years, and then he ended our relationship and he'd been cheating on me, and I found out afterwards. And he got together with someone else very quickly afterwards, and it was a very painful breakup. I knew it was coming. I felt the dissonance between us for a long time, but I was very much in wounded, attached energy. So I just clung on, right? as we often do when we're in these wounded places. It was very codependent and very volatile. So when he broke up with me, it kind of plunged me into this very lost and like wounded space, and I was forced to face all the places within myself that felt abandoned and rejected and blah blah blah. And when he openly got together with this other woman, and he denied that before, it brought up so much anger, and it was really a very intense experience. So um that process was the first time that I truly sat and self-reflected, and that was the first time that, after moving through a lot of the anger and the projection and the blaming him and like he's an asshole, what a blah blah blah, like all the stuff that I called him and all the stuff I called her. When I moved beyond that, I realized intuitively that I'm going to just keep looping in pain and suffering until I empower myself to see what did I do to contribute to this level of dysfunction in a relationship, and what can I do to make sure it doesn't happen again? Because I never wanted to replicate that experience. It was so painful to be on the receiving end of that kind of betrayal, and also to have co-created a relationship that was so dysfunctional. I was just like, what can I do to make sure that that doesn't happen again? So that was, I think, I consider that, even though it wasn't a particularly spiritual awakening, it was the first experience I had that made me truly introspective and really got me to look at myself with honesty, and to see all the ways that I was contributing to that dysfunction. And then it started the process of me recognizing that I essentially was a clone of my mother and all of her dysfunction, which then started to really opened my eyes, because I was thinking, well, there's patterns here, there's mirroring and parallels between the way that I was with Johnny and the way that my mum is with my stepdad. So, it like spiraled into this awareness that, wow, there's something deeper here. It's not just I am the way I am, it's I am the way I am, and the way I am is maybe not who I truly am. And it actually got to that point where I was so intent that I didn't want to be like that. Once I became aware of my patterns and how, like I used to be so shut down and so avoidant of conflict, like my mother, that whenever there was an argument, my ex would want to go into solution and let's just deal with it. And I would shut down, withdraw, and then it was really quite manipulative, although wasn't consciously doing it, and then actually like almost make him beg. Like I would keep him out, I would shut him out for so long, and I could go on for days, and then he would finally say, Tash, let's just do this, I'm sorry, whatever, let's just get over it. And it's like I would wait for him to grovel or for him to apologize before I would soften. And I realized like how toxic that was on my part, even though I wasn't doing it consciously. That was just the mechanism I'd always employed when I was in pain. um and I feel like, again, I've got many videos to make to catch up on, but that's another one I want to make it on, because we say a lot about toxic behavior and like this person's a toxic person. We all have the potential to be toxic. We all have the potential to act in unconscious ways. So, like, let's just acknowledge that, right? And we all have the potential to change that too. And so, witnessing that level of dysfunction, because I knew that wasn't my heart, I knew that the deepest, the deepest part of my being was not that person. I knew there was a dissonance. I wanted to know what that dissonance was. I was like, because my heart is this, a heart that feels and that loves and is connected, and I'm presenting with this behavior. Why is that? And that question of why, like, why am I the way I am? That drove me, and that continued to drive me into my spiritual awakening. So um, then I went through a process where I was going through that breakup. I was working a job for 2 years in a marketing agency. Well, I was marketing, it was a HR company, but I was in the marketing department. And I was so miserable. I'd moved through 3 years of university, suicidal. I was on autopilot the entire time. I hated it. I only did it because everyone around me told me I should. I was so dissociated and so miserable. And then when I got that job and the breakup happened, I descended even into more misery. So I was working a job that I was getting really well paid for. I had a nice car. I was like, gymming. I was doing all the stuff like all the matrix stuff, right? Just going through the motions, living for the weekend. And I was so fucking miserable that I think it was nearly 2 years later into that job, my sister had planned a trip to go to Asia for the first time with her now husband, who was her boyfriend at the time, and said, Tash, come with us, even if it's for just 2 weeks, and you come back to work afterwards and you just book it as holiday, just come with us because you need some novelty. You need to break this cycle you're in. And I realized that that was my opportunity to change something big time. And it scared the shit out of me. And I was like, that's why I need to do it, because it scares me. And therefore there's something for me in it. Because I'd done comfort. I had exhausted the comfort zone and it wasn't giving me what I wanted. So I was like, well, if the comfort zone isn't giving me what I want, maybe I need to be looking where my fear is. So I started moving closer to the fear. And so I quit my job because I didn't want the safety net of returning to something comfortable, and I booked a one-way ticket to Thailand, which was going to be a 2-week trip, and then it ended up being 2 months. And I went on my own after 2 weeks of traveling with my sister and her boyfriend and his sister. I went on my own and I traveled to 3 additional countries on my own, and that reignited my spark for life. That reignited that connection with myself beyond that paradigm that I'd been stuck in. And I went back to the UK for the summer. I worked 3 jobs to save, and then I moved to Vietnam. And I'd met a guy, interestingly enough. I met a man that I had an intense connection with in Vietnam. I wasn't supposed to go to Vietnam, that wasn't on my list, but I met him in Thailand while I was with my sister. Um, and he was like, I'm going to Vietnam, you should come and meet me out there. And I went and met him, and it was a very it was exactly what I needed. Like the connection didn't last long, but he got me out there. He gave me that extra push to go out there. And when I went out there, it was like an initiation, right? I was like a single 24-year-old woman in North Asia. Hanoi is basically China. Obviously, cultural nuances. I don't want to generalize, but the culture is quite Chinese. Um, and so I was like learning to ride a bike, and there was like a lot of learning to do. I was in like a very busy city, and I was teaching English, and it was just like I didn't have anywhere to live, and I didn't have a job, and I just kind of had to hit the ground running in this foreign country. And I have Sina, this guy, to thank for that. He kind of gave me the push to go out there. And then when I was in Hanoi, after a couple of months, again, so many crazy synchronicities. To me, that was the year of synchronicities. When I look back at what happened when I was in Hanoi, it's unbelievable the way things unfolded. But long story short, I had a housemate that committed suicide. It was awful. And I felt the energy of that so strongly that I couldn't stay in the house I was in Hanoi anymore. And so I moved out into a different house. And my partner, who was my soon to be partner, moved into that house. And that's how we met. And meeting him really catalyzed my awakening. So we met, we were living together. And then one of the first presents he ever gave me was Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. And I think I mentioned this in my last video, but that was the book that really woke me up to the ego structure. So I'd done all that self-awareness digging after the disillusion of my first relationship, but I didn't have any vocabulary for it. I didn't know about the ego. I think I'd read like one book on like moving through grief, but I didn't have any like self-development really tools. I kind of had done a lot of the work myself. And then when I read A New Earth, it was like, bam, here's like the context, the vocabulary you've been looking for to name your experience. It's real. That person that you knew you weren't is your ego. And it was like, aha, it was like another level of awareness came in. And then when I was in Vietnam, it was like, it was just crazy. The stuff that I experienced in that year alone was insane. I met a qigong master, started doing qigong. I met this 96-year-old acupuncturist who was using me in one of the universities in Hanoi as his student, and he was like massaging me and like moving energy in crazy ways, all for free because I just volunteered to do that. And what else? I had like my first spiritual guide out there who was like exposing me to past lives, and like we were doing energy work together, and I was completely new to all of it. but me and my ex joked that we had like every weekend there was a new person coming into my field that was like, you know, changing things in a big way for me. So that year, that was in 20, I moved to Vietnam in 2015, but 2016 was, I would say, like the year that like my awakening really kicked off. And then ever since then, it's just been building and building. I went to South America for 5 months after that. And there are many other things that I could talk about, which maybe I'll make separate videos on. But it's been a journey. So um, I started to awaken in my 20s, and then many things have happened since that experience with my first ex partner. So, when and how you discovered you had gifts for channeling and receiving messages from high dimensions after my Kundalini awakening in 2019 is the answer to that. Um, I did not channel consciously prior to that. I didn't even know what channeling was, I don't think, prior to that. Or if I'd heard of it, I was probably very dismissive of it. Prior to my Kundalini awakening, I had done the majority of the spiritual work I'd done was mindfulness, ego awareness, practicing presence. I started to be exposed to past lives by that point, and I was learning about karma, soul contracts, that kind of thing. And then when I went to India, that was another initiation. Every trip I've had has been an initiation. And I realized now it's funny, I've been called to quite a lot of sites, ancient sites. Like went to Peru, to Machu Picchu, to a lot of the ancient land there, and then obviously went to India. Um, and so I had the Kundalini awakening. And then for those of you that have seen my Kundalini awakening video, my channel opened almost immediately after that. And for the first year and a half, because I had no idea what was going on, I thought I was in psychosis. So at that point, I was so ungrounded in the Kundalini awakening. It was obviously spontaneous, and I had not done. I mean, I'd done some preparatory work in that I was practicing yoga every day for 6 years, and yoga asana and meditation, I should say. And I was doing some of the work, but there was the blocks that were in my system were big. So when the Kundalini started to rise, she had a hell of a lot to work through, and so it wasn't a smooth, blissful, transformative process initially. It was like my world exploded, and it was like amazing and simultaneously like paradigm destroying. And so my crown and third eye have always been fairly open and active. In the sense that I've always been like, not even consciously, but I've always had an awareness of spirit. I've always had an awareness, not in the sense that I used to see ghosts or anything, but I just had always had an awareness of a higher consciousness. I always, since I was a child, I used to look at the stars, and I used to long to know my place within the cosmos, and I used to have like existential crises as like a 6-year old. I always had some sense that there was something much bigger, and I was always curious and driven to understand what that was, why I had that sense of connection to something bigger. And I could like, I don't want to say communicate with animals and plants, but I felt like I could understand animals, uh, and receive messages, maybe not like in the way of like loud words in my head, but like through feeling and through like, claircognizance and knowing, again, through energy. And I've always been very sensitive to energy. And I've only just in the last year realized why, like what the gift in that is. And I'll speak about that in a bit. So, the receiving messages and the channeled guidance came through really strongly after the Kundalini awakening. I had that year and a half where I didn't know what was going on. My crown was open, and I had so much density and so many blocks in the lower centers that I wasn't able to anchor the energy. So I spent that first year, especially, basically in what could have been described by the mainstream as a psychotic episode, because I was like, my what was happening at spontaneous times, which I couldn't really control, was I would start vibrating, and my eyes would roll into Shambhala Mudra, right? So like they would roll up to third eye involuntarily, and then I would go up my channel. So it was like I was leaving my body, and I would go up a pillar of light, and it was like going up elevators, like ding, 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 ding. And I was going up this pillar of light, and that's where I started to see beings. Like in my third eye, I would see lion beings, blue beings, all different sorts of beings that weren't human. And then it's like, I used to call it the cosmic phone call, because it was like that I'd be going about my day, and then my crown would start vibrating, my whole body would start vibrating, and I was like, at the time, I was either with my ex or we were just in the process of breaking up, but we were still really good friends. My more recent ex. So at that point, I was seeing him often, and he was helping me to ground. And I'd be like, "Tim, there's another one coming in," and neither of us knew what was happening. He would just sit with me, and I would be in a lot of fear. And I kept saying, "I don't want any of this. I don't want it. I don't understand it." I grew up Catholic. I had a lot of religious programming to clear, past life religious programming to clear at that point. I was absolutely terrified of the darkness. I was quite terrified of like thinking I was connecting with something dark. So I kept saying, "I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it." And then the Lyrans. So I've spoken about them a little bit on this channel, but I kept seeing these majestic white lion beings, and not even just seeing them, but like sensing them around me. And there was always a group of them, like 7 of them, and it was like they were there, and I could feel in the cosmic phone call that they were trying to bring things through, and I was just so terrified that I said I didn't want any of it, and I shut it all down. And then it was only when I wasn't on any social media, and then I joined Instagram in 2020, partly as my own like way of expressing myself and what I was learning, and partly because I was desperate for community and to meet other people because I was like, am I crazy? And also bearing in mind I'd started to channel light language. And in my religious upbringing, it was called speaking in tongues. And it was like my priest said that was the sign of the devil. So I was like, what the fuck is happening? I need to find out if anyone else is experiencing this. Um, and then it has been a real process of basically clearing fear. That's all this process is. It's just clearing fear. That's all. All of the information, the insight, the wisdom, the gifts, the soul, the soul luminosity and radiance, it's already there. Like the sun is always shining. Your soul's gifts and what you're here to do, it's already there. It's already online. It's just distorted. It's just clouded over. It's just covered over with conditioning and programming and fear. And so that's what we're here to do. It's not, we call it a remembrance, but really it's just to purify from the density that we have identified with, to come back to remembering who we actually are. So, when a cloud passes over the sun doesn't stop shining, the sun doesn't go anywhere, but we could perceive, if we're in separation, that the cloud is the sun, right? Like, or there is no sun at all. And actually it's just a phenomenon that passes. The sun always shines. The soul always is luminous and radiant, and is innately, full of wisdom, and has innately the gifts that you're here to actualize. We just have to do the inner work to clear the fear. So easy, right? So yeah, that was when I started to receive messages, and from the higher dimensions. What form do these messages come to you in? So since I've been doing a lot of this very intense heart purification, my process now is, because most of you that have been on my channel for a while, you'll probably guess that I have a fairly active mind, and I have a fairly intellectual mind that likes to intellectualize things, right? I like to understand things from that intellectual perspective. I like to know the reasons why, which can be helpful, and it can also be a massive hindrance. And what I've realized is I always thought my mind was my greatest asset. So I clung to my mind, right? Because it was like the thing that I got the most validation for at school. It's been the thing that to me naturally comes easily. I think expansive thoughts. I can think very deeply into subjects. I've got fairly wide range of intelligence types. My brain is, fairly dynamic, and I got really attached to my mind. And then what I've been learning in the last year is that my attachment to my mind is hindering the gifts that want to come through. So since I've been doing this heart work, where I've been like really focusing, purely because the heart pain, density, terror that Lisa was mentioning got so intense, I was like, I have to deal with this, and I have to start addressing it, because it was becoming unbearable. I was having panic attacks every day. I was like, the palpitations. I've been to hospital twice in the last year, in thinking I was having a cardiac arrest, and I've gone on ECGs, and I've had all the scans, and yeah, everything came back clear. I've been to, I was hooked up to all this stuff. They were reading everything. They did all the blood tests. Everything came back clear. And there was no, and this has happened to me so many times since the Kundalini awakening, where I've had a very physical feeling sensation or symptom. And then I've gone to, mainstream medicine and they're like, there's nothing wrong. Like, they couldn't find anything. So I was like, well, that just again validates that this is part of this process with the Kundalini. I need to deal with it at the level of energy rather than going from the level of form and matter and the physical. So since I've started to do this heart work, I have naturally found that my place of orientation has become the heart rather than the head. Oh my god, have had all the tests too and all come back clear. Yep, because because that's the thing. That's what's mad about this journey, right? It feels so physical, and it's not. It's really not. Right now, in this very moment, I have a what feels like a fucking ball in my liver that is so tense and tight, and it moves around to different places in my liver. So I had scans, ultrasound scans, back in February or March, all over my diaphragm because I also had pain in my gallbladder. I did gallbladder flushes. I wasn't passing any gallstones, and I was still in like so much pain. Had all the tests done, my entire diaphragm done. Couldn't find a single thing. No blocks. All of my organs were clear. So I'm like, what the fuck is this thing in here? It's nothing to do with the physical. And I can feel the nature of what this block is. It's a holding of anger, resistance, bitterness. It's a lot of the work I've been doing with the masculine recently. So yeah, it all comes back clear because it's like you're not dealing with it at the level that you're supposed to be dealing with it at. So what was I saying? Sorry, I've gone off on another tangent. Soul gifts, heart wisdom, right. So I descended my head awareness over the last year to my heart. And what that has done is that is allowing me to connect with the knowing beyond mental knowing. The heart's wisdom, when we're connected to it, and when we're connected to just intuition, or our intuition, our ability to receive guidance, our ability to be connected to the unified field is felt through the body. So the only real work we need to do with the mind is clearing it and cleaning it, deconditioning, practicing presence so we can sit in spaciousness so that we can witness thoughts and judgments. All we need to do is clear the mind so that the mind can be utilized as a tool rather than it using us. And when it comes to developing and deepening our ability to hear, receive messages and guidance, to me, that's where the embodiment work comes in. We have to actually be in this human body, in this vehicle that is receiving information all the time. In this earthly experience, we have to be present. We experience the present through the now moment, through the body, not in the mind. If we're in thoughts, we're not in the present. So we have to be in the body, connected to the purity of the heart, the humility of the heart, which is the portal to love. It's the portal to the unified field. And since I've been making that my place of orientation and that my place of like directing my energy, what's happening is the knowingness beyond mental knowing is coming through. So my practice now, whenever I'm trying to get guidance on anything, is to descend my awareness. So like where I'm putting my focus actually into the heart center. And then I ask the questions. And the more you clear the fear, the stories, the density from the field, the clearer your field becomes to receive the answers more quickly, with more clarity. And so, interestingly, something that's been happening naturally, I've done a couple of soul readings for two friends recently. And it's all just coming intuitively since I've started to clear the heart space and open the heart more. The guidance is coming through naturally. And it's not even like my mind is having to, schedule or plan anything. My capacity to feel my energy field and to feel what feels right and good in my body, which to me is like an expansion, it's a warmth, it's like the I'll get that kind of ecstasy bliss state in from the Kundalini. There'll be like a lot of sexual energy that comes through. My ability to be in my body and feel the field around me is what's informing me with regards to what feels right and what doesn't feel right. So it's like I'm in the body, I'm allowing myself to feel and to be guided by the field. And what's started to happen is the light language, because I've now grounded enough in this earthly body and I'm no longer just in the channel, I've cleared enough density to move the energy down into the body. What's happening is the light language is coming through, and I'm starting to be only just now, I'm still practicing, I'm starting to be able to translate that into words, earthly words. So I'm starting to be able to translate what the language, light language, is communicating. So I had 2 sessions with friends recently. One of my friends is having a past life regression. She wanted 10 questions um, that she could ask during that past life regression to kind of go deeper. And I'm naturally good at forming inquiring questions. So I'm a projector in human design, for anyone that knows human design. So that's what we're good at. We're good at kind of like penetrating auras and like asking questions that help people to go deeper and mirroring back what we perceive with that deeper insight. So I just had the guidance to hold her hands, look in her eyes, and the light language started to come through. And as the light language was coming through, I started to just hear, and you could say it's audible, or you could say it's like in the mind, or you could say it's just a knowing in the body. It's kind of a mixture of all of them. Just the words start coming through that I need to say to her, and I'm just bringing it through. And it's just like I'm there in the moment. And it's like what I think is happening is my body and on my open energy centers, because there's a projector below the throat, all of our energy centers are open and undefined in human design. I'm receiving all of this energetic information. It's all being assimilated. And my job is to kind of filter it through my heart, through the purity and humility of the heart space, right? Of through the eyes of love, and then bring it up and out and through my throat. And so it's like I'm bringing this knowingness through, and like I was just delivering gifts to her, and like as in like gifts for her soul, and mirroring back what she needed to hear. And this has been happening with like oracle cards. I've realized that I just need to translate. And like my gift is to feel energy as strongly as I do and translate it from energy into something that is meaningful to the other person. And my field is already giving me the information. I just need to learn how to translate it. So the way I receive messages is through visuals. It will be like a flash. And for so long, I did not realize that that's how I received guidance. And so I was ignoring it because I just thought it was bullshit. So what will come through for me is a flash of either a picture or an image of something, a word, a song lyric. I take all of that as guidance now, and I follow those nudges. They're like breadcrumbs. So I will receive a song and I'll play that song because I'm gonna trust that there's something in that song that I need to hear, that it's going to spark an emotional release, whatever the process is, right? So the guidance comes through in like visuals. It's audible in that I hear words and I see words in my mind's eye. I see clear images in my mind's eye. And I also, there's a clear cognizance. There's just a knowingness in my body, which comes when we're connected to the heart, in my opinion. It's a knowing beyond knowing, as I've said before. So I hope that kind of answers the question of how I receive guidance. I think I'll do another video on intuition. I did one before, but I have a much more embodied understanding of intuition, and realizing that most of the time we dismiss into intuition our innate ability to receive our intuition, because the mind is judging the way we receive the intuition. Oh, well, if it was real intuition, it'd be really loud and really obvious. It's like, no, it's not how it works. It's subtle. That's why it requires our presence. That's why it requires our ability to connect to the body, because we're receiving this information energetically through the body. We've got to be here now. Otherwise, we're going to be absorbed in the mind, and then we're just not going to be able to actually be clear enough to receive the guidance in the first place. So thank you for that, Sarah. Sarah or Sarah, I'm not sure. I'm going to go with Sarah. Okay. I don't know how long I've been going for. I chat, don't I? I do like to chat. An hour already. Okay. Um, any insights for those who are on the journey and yet have blind spots and keep losing financial and other gains and falling back into lack, survival, panic? If you're willing to speak about finances in your own life, that would be great. It's the first part of that question. Yes. I will speak about finances, the bane of my earthly existence. Conan. We always seem to get what we need in relationships. Yeah. Everyone is a mirror for us. We've got to thank the people that have been really tough mirrors for us because they're showing us the deepest stuff that we wouldn't be able to see within ourselves. To me, they're our greatest teachers. Couldn't agree more, you're dead on, lady. Thank you. Oh my God, have had all the tests and came back. We said that already. And hi, Cole, if you're still here. Lovely to have you. So, with regards to finances, yes. So, in terms of earthly challenges, I would say that healing my relationship with money has been and continues to be one of the most challenging alongside my addiction to sugar. They are the two things. The sugar addiction is kind of naturally starting to dissipate as I become more anchored in my own value and sense of worth, and I clear those kind of underlying wounds of like lack and abandonment and not feeling loved. The sugar thing, the sugar is just a substitute for love, right? So it's like once I clear the sense that I'm not loved and that kind of unconscious wound, the sugar thing is abating. The financial thing is complex. I'm realizing, for me anyway. Or perhaps I'm overcomplicating it, but I'm realizing that the stories I have around money are very complex. So, from what you've said in your message, I thought about this earlier. Um, yeah, I have blind spots and keep losing financial and other gains. So, the first thing that comes to mind when you say that is leaky energy, a leaky structural container. I hope I've got the energy to describe what I want to say properly. Um, so, in terms of energy, and like how much we can hold in our field, right? We could think about the container of what's possible for us to call in and manifest as our masculine principle, and our ability to attract is our feminine principle. So it sounds like maybe you're good at the feminine principle of magnetizing and calling in what you need. So that would involve maybe the visualizing and like feeling, being in the body, embodying it, the knowingness that you're going to have it and receive it and being open to receiving it. So you don't have the same blocks as me. The issue for me is that I'm not open to receiving. So it's kind of wounded feminine energy for me. But so it sounds like you've got the openness to receive, but you are not holding your container. So there are structural issues there. Your aura is glowing white today, Tash. Thank you, Cole. That's amazing to hear. I don't know why that is, but I'll take it. So yeah, it's a structural energetic container issue. So there could be a number of reasons why you are leaking that energy. If at any level of our consciousness, we do not feel we are worthy or valuable enough to have what we want, even if we have the capacity to call it in, we will not be able to keep it or hold it. We will lose it. We will spend it. We will break it. We will get rid of it as quickly as we can unconsciously so that we can continue to be a match for the subconscious belief that is most dominant in our consciousness. I hope that made sense. So, for example, say I have an unconscious belief that I'm not worthy of having a lot of money. And I managed to enter the vortex and I managed to call in money. As I did last year, I manifested £5,000 at the beginning of last year. That's the most I'd ever brought in one lump sum. And it came in just one source in one go. So I called that energy in and I spent it like on a coach, and I leaked it very, very quickly. And while it was invested into things, the reality is I could not hold £5,000 in my field very long. So the question we need to ask is why? Why do I not feel capable or happy or easeful with holding that amount? And maybe at a conscious level, we don't know the reason. And this is why we have to do the inquiry work. For me, it's complex why I feel I can't hold money. There's a masculine container issue. So if we're leaking money, right, or any resources or relationships, if there's any sense that we're losing things from our field, that we can't hold on to things, it's a container issue. So it's masculine polarity we need to deal with. So for me, masculine polarity is structure, organization, the ability to take action, the ability to be organized. If any aspect of us is not organized, right? If there's an aspect of our lives that is not organized, then if we call in lots of new stuff into our reality, but we are still feeling quite chaotic in our reality because we're not feeling organized, anything else we call in is going to feel like overwhelmed to our nervous systems, and we're going to get rid of it because it's like, I can't handle it. I've already got so much shit that I haven't dealt with. I'm going to just get rid of it. I'm going to spend it. I'm going to manifest a car accident. I'm going to manifest a broken leg that needs to, needs medical, need to pay for medical bills, whatever the thing is, right? We are always going to um, try to, at an unconscious level, match the belief that we hold. It's the subconscious beliefs that are determining what we're attracting in our reality. So for me, I've manifested £5,000, and then I've got this unconscious belief that I shouldn't have money, that I can't have money, that it's got to be hard work. I didn't also earn that money, it was given to me in an easeful way. I didn't do anything to take it, to earn it. It was given freely. And so if I've got an unconscious belief like getting money into my reality is really hard and it's got to be struggle, and the way in which I receive doesn't match, or I'm not comfortable with receiving in that way, it's going to hit up against this unconscious belief that says, yeah, but that's not safe, because my unconscious belief is it's got to be struggle, and therefore the way I've received doesn't feel safe, even though the unconscious belief is bullshit. um, so yeah, it's all a lack of self-worth. And so to validate that unconscious belief that says money has got to be hard earned, it's got to be struggle, and I'm not worthy of having it anyway, I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to find ways to spend it. So to solidify your container issue, and so you can actually hold, even if it's not accumulating money or whatever it is you want to hold, but just holding it, you've got to understand where you're leaking your energy to begin with. Like, where in your consciousness do you not feel safe or comfortable or worthy of holding the thing you want? um, and this is going to be unconscious most of the time. What else did you say? uh Finance, that would be great. So yeah, at the moment, I mean, it's so complex what I'm realizing my own stories around money are. But for me, another aspect of the masculine container that allows us to feel safe to hold whatever we want to hold and manifest, another aspect that's been weak for me is feeling empowered with money. So I'm going to just quickly share with you. I've actually written it in a series of posts that I'm going to put out on Instagram. So let me just quickly share with you the dialoguing process that I went through to understand this like feeling I was having with money. So I started with, and this is where I say about like self-inquiry and journaling and self-dialoguing coming in. This is how I do my shadow work most of the time. I ask questions and I listen for the honest answers. So the question I asked was, where in my life am I ready to consciously expand, but still feel in subconscious contraction, resistance, or limitation? So where do I feel within myself there's holding when I actually want to be more expansive and free in that area? The answer came up: money. I'm ready to expand my container to make and hold more money from a place of integrity and authenticity. So I'm not willing to compromise my values to make that money, but I do want to earn more. The question I asked after that was, what comes up when I acknowledge that desire? And what came up was a fear of responsibility, specifically a fear of the self assessment, taxes, bookkeeping process, because the work I'm doing predominantly now is self employed, effectively managing my money, and genuine elements of structural containment and that masculine element. So, with money, one of the other reasons I've been leaky with my money is because there's an aspect of me that fears having more money because I don't feel prepared for it. So again, we have to have the container masculine in order to be able to hold the flow of life feminine. So this is how the polarities dance with one another. We expand our capacity to hold, or really to just expand our capacity to remember who we really are. And that allows the flow of life to enter our experience with more ease, right? And to animate whatever wants to be animated. So we have to constantly, the thing that I kind of concluded with was, with every desired expansion, we must expand our capacity to hold that desire. Until I face my fear of effectively managing and tracking my financial side of my business, I'm going to continuously, subconsciously self sabotage my ability to call in or hold more money because I don't feel safe or ready to do so at a subconscious level. By addressing that fear practically and directly, I'm going to fortify the structural container of my business and prepare myself for when I do have more money, which will feel much more safe and protective to my nervous system. I hope some of this is making sense because I am getting tired. And I hope that made sense. I know it's hard to process information sometimes when it's just being read, being received audibly, but it's a container issue. It's like if we don't feel safe in some aspect to receive or to hold, we're going to chuck it out of our energy field. And this is where the nervous system work comes in, the clearing trauma, the clearing subconscious wounding, clearing that subconscious fear so that we can feel safe to hold and contain whatever it is we want to contain. So I've realized recently that, yeah, for me, it's funny. It wasn't what I was expecting when I was diving into the money thing. I thought it was like a worthiness wound, and there's some of that there, but more of it was when I was actually like sensing into where do I actually just feel scared of money. It was like if I made a load of money now, like £100,000 came in now from my own business, what I feel is like, but I've got so much other stuff that I haven't dealt with yet. Like I'm kind of in the space of moving and like clearing out so I can live in the van. And I've got so much of my physical environment that needs to be dealt with. And I've got stuff from the last year of work that I still haven't dealt with financially in terms of like logging it and making sure that I'm up to date with my taxes so that when self-assessment comes, I'm ready. And the funny thing is, I'm naturally quite a flowy person, but I've realized that I work best when there's structure. So when I actually create structure for myself, it allows me to be way more focused and directive with my energy. And that actually gives me more energy to flow. So I've realized that actually, when we are leaky in one area, we don't just look at the area we're leaky in, look at all areas of your life. If you're leaking energy anywhere, whether that's in a relationship or with money or anything else, look at your life and notice, where am I not in balance in any area of my life? Because that's also going to have an impact. So even just me having a chaotic home environment, or that feels chaotic to my nervous system, is going to feel unsafe to call in more because my nervous system's already in chaos at a subconscious level, if that makes sense. So again, so much of this work is like at the human biological level, it's nervous system regulation, which contributes to, which is what the Kundalini is doing. It's regulating and it's balancing and it's activating the full potential of the nervous system so that we can be these kind of upgraded human animal spirit beings here in form. So yeah, that is my answer to that question in a nutshell. Not really a nutshell, in a very long-winded answer, but I hope it made sense. How you developed and use your gifts, which I think probably I've answered, and I don't want to bore you all with another round of that. But what I will say is that I've realized that my sensitivity, and I know many of you are sensitive also, I've come to realize that my sensitivity to energy, which always felt like a curse, has, I've realized it's been so I've been prepared my whole life. Those of us that are super sensitive to energy are preparing. What are we preparing for? We're preparing to be teachers, guides, whatever word you want to use, for the paradigm of the new earth. We are moving into a space in our evolutionary process where we are going to be more and more and more understanding, experiencing energy very tangibly, and we will be working with energy in much more conscious ways as this human evolution process unfolds and we start to come more into a state of embodied conscious remembrance as humans. Everything is energy presenting as physical, right? When we can consciously work with energy, we become creators of our own experience. So what I'm realizing is, through the school of hard knocks, which is what Earth has felt like in this life, I'm being schooled in how to read, receive, translate, and transmute energy so that I can help others understand it, because it is the language of the new earth. Energy, frequency, vibration is the language of the new earth. And so for me, I'm realizing that my gift is my ability to feel energy so strongly. I feel people's energy fields. I can feel the COVID vax. I can feel 5G and Wi-Fi. I can feel And I'm realizing that I can not only just feel the vibration of the fields around me, when I really tune into my heart, I can also start to translate what it is that I need to receive about that energy that I'm being, whatever's coming through, right? So with my friend, for example, she has felt uncomfortable with her weight. She's always carried more weight than she wanted to. And she's, a raw vegan, and she's like, just she's such a beautiful spirit, and she's done so much work to improve herself physically and whatnot, and to really get into a good state mentally. And she still hasn't lost this weight that she's wanted to. So one of the questions that she wanted to ask was, why am I still holding this weight? And so when I got the guidance to hold her hands, and I was like looking into her eyes, and again, the eyes are the windows to the soul, right? So when I'm looking into the eyes, I'm kind of directly receiving the frequencies from the soul that I'm translating with light language and then translating into human words. And what came through when I was doing that was that it wasn't even a clear image, but it was like a knowingness that it was around 5 years old, the guidance I got. At 5 years old, she made the subconscious decision that she wasn't being seen, that she's from a fairly big family with siblings, parents that weren't that attentive all the time. She wasn't being seen. So she decided, as a maladaptive coping mechanism, right, or as a maladaptive strategy of the subconscious, it's just a wonky way of trying to fix the problem of being seen. She decided she needed to take up more space. And so her subconscious decided to do that at a physical way, right? If you feel like you can't take up space, or that you're not being seen by those you love and that you want to be loved by, what's another way you can take up space? You can physically take up space with your weight. And that was the guidance I received. And she started crying because that was an angle that she hadn't seen before. And it was realizing that it was actually just an aspect of her that is really stuck in feeling, not validated and not witnessed and not seen. So it's like, again, this is my own embodied experience of this process, but it's like I'm realizing that my gift with sensitivity is to be able to translate energy into something useful for someone. And I feel very strongly that I've gone through this journey with energy, and I also feel with money. I feel like once I crack break down those barriers to money, I'm going to be able to teach people with many barriers to money how to create and hold and accumulate money, because it's one of my biggest obstacles. And I truly believe that our biggest challenges are our greatest gifts to the world once they're alchemized. So I know there's a big thing in money. And it's funny that in my fields, like when I'm not in my head and I'm just like sensing into timelines, I know I'm going to be wealthy. And since I was a kid, I've known that. But my lived reality and experience in this life has been poverty for most of my life. And this is the other thing we have to recognize, right? Many of us are doing this ancestral work. So the stories that are embedded around money, around worth, around being able to receive, especially if we're women, this is big. Our ability to receive, whether that is money or a relationship or anything else, is going to be relative to the amount of wounding we hold within our feminine consciousness. So, we've got the container stuff with the masculine that I was speaking about earlier, right? That really kind of solidifying that container, creating safety in our nervous systems, getting a handle on aspects that we need to be accountable of, being structured and organized. The other aspect to that is we need to really start looking at our feminine wounding, and where are we still guarding, defending, armoring against life? Where do we not trust life? Where do we still feel unsafe? And we need to be able to sit and witness that. And I've realized that through my ancestral line, there's a lot of very, very wounded feminine energy, that a lot of betrayal, a lot of men through the ancestral line that betrayed, cheated, did horrible things. And so the ancestral stories, I don't know much about my dad's side, but I know on my maternal line, the storyline around money and men has been pretty dire. And at a more earthly level, my mum is from West Africa. She's from an island which was colonized by the Portuguese, which is why there were kind of Caucasian people there. But she was from West Africa, and it's a developing country. They have virtually no infrastructure. So my mum's experience was moving from West Africa to Portugal when she was 14. and then Portugal to the UK. She had no real formal education, neither did my dad. Um, she struggled her whole life. And so also not having models for accumulating wealth has had an impact on me, because my whole upbringing was in scarcity. My dad was mentally ill, couldn't hold down a job. So again, the masculine, our parents are models for masculine and feminine energy in this life, right? The insight that came to me a couple of weeks ago, which is also another video I want to make, is that our parents are the first potential experiences we have of God or the divine. Because in an ideal world, if our parents were integrated beings, they would be modeling in unconditional love to us. And therefore, they would be helping us to experience and embody unconditional love and mirroring that frequency back to us. And therefore, we would just be emanating unconditional love, because that's all that's being mirrored back to us. Because we have parents that are in trauma, separation, fear, we start to have fear, trauma, separation mirrored back to us. And so that beautiful, pristine consciousness that we come into this world with starts to get distorted. So it's actually like children are not born broken. It's like that conditioning can enter our consciousness very early, even in the womb. And so it can start to be, the distortion of the field can happen very early on, but the consciousness is pristine. And so I realized that from a very early age, I was exposed to a lot of fear, scarcity programming, and lack. And then my lived experience was also that, not having a dad that earned money. Therefore, my experience of masculine energy was that my dad was chaotic, all over the place, like, kind of schizophrenic energy. So, like the opposite of what healthy masculine energy looks like, violent. Uh, and then when my mum and I left, we moved a lot. So I was in like refuges and council housing until 6 years old. So my relationship with stability and safety and masculine energy from that early period of my life was inverted. It was the opposite. My nervous system got used to chaos. My nervous system got used to instability. So this is the other thing that we have to recognize when we're doing this reprogramming work. What is safe for us may feel unsafe to the conditioning. What is good for us and is going to be expansive for us may feel absolutely terrifying to the conditioning. Doesn't make it wrong. It just means that, there's some rectifying to do. So for me, like having those early experiences with the masculine energy, with my dad, with life feeling unstable in those early years, created that lack of stability and that inability for me to feel safe in masculine energy. And because I felt unsafe, I then also started to embody this really wounded feminine energy of, I don't trust life, I have to armor and guard, and I have to do it all by myself, and I can't receive, and I can't be open to good things coming in. And I still am clearing this now. It's so deep, like this sense within me that I cannot receive. Like I can feel it in my field. There is a bounty of stuff that wants to enter. I've already had this, like I had a few weeks ago, I knew that there was a man coming into my field. I said to my friends, I've been clearing stuff, more expansion was happening in my field, and I said I could feel that there is a man about to enter my field. And the only thing that had to change was my ability to receive. That vibrational potential is already there. That timeline is already there. In the unified field, all potential exists. What collapses from vibration to matter is whatever we align ourselves with at the level of frequency. So we have to do that subconscious clearing work so that we are a match vibrationally across all areas of our being for what we want. If I want to receive, if I'm saying I want to call in a man or I want to call in a relationship, but my subconscious is saying men are unsafe and I don't want anything to do with masculine energy, I'm sending out like a wonky signal. So I'm not going to receive that which I want, or if I want it, I'm going to chuck it out pretty quickly. So this is such deep, nuanced work, which is why it requires us to be honest and it requires self-inquiry. Yeah, this to me, this wound around money receiving is the big one that I'm currently dealing with, and I know that it's tied to energy and the energy of the solar plexus and empowerment for me, and it's a real sense that I need to become more empowered. And again, it's like if you don't have anyone in your life that models to you being able to hold a lot of money or create money or accumulate money, if you've got people whose stories around money are, we're never going to have it, we're always going to be poor, it's like, and it's been like that for a long time, it's like it's hard to change those messages. And even Cole, when you're saying like I'm worthy of abundance and prosperity, for me, affirmations aren't even enough. It's like the block is so like, it's so, what's the word? It's like so convincing, this story that is in my subconscious, that it's like, I know that it's taking time to unravel. I know I'll get there. I know I'll get there because I'm a dog with a bone, right? Like I'm here for liberation. So it will move, it will shift. Um, but what I'm realizing is, and so I was saying about the man came into my field this weekend. He arrived in my reality. And what his presence has done has shown me all the ways that I'm still resistant to receiving, right? It's like a beautiful connection. I don't know what it's going to become, but it's beautiful. And it's beautiful to be around masculine energy. And I deeply long for masculine energy. And yet, that fearful part is like, it's not safe. He's going to disappoint you. He's going to, I don't know, he's going to be like your dad and turn violent or whatever it is, like there's all that fear that comes up to try and block or throw the manifestation out the window because it doesn't feel safe. So much of this work we're doing is around safety and nervous system recalibration. So yes, it's it's a lot. And as I was saying, sorry, I'm going like off on many tangents, but when it comes to the feminine as well, I feel like the feminine consciousness when it comes to receiving, like we've got a lot of work to do because we're clearing on behalf of the feminine consciousness. What has the feminine consciousness endured during the patriarchal paradigm, right? The feminine has been denied, abused, raped, pillaged, treated with disrespect. Not just saying women, I'm saying the feminine pole of consciousness in general. Our ability to be emotional, our ability to be nourishing, our ability to be connected, to be soft, to be in flow, to be receptive, to be open to spirit. That's been stamped out of everyone's consciousness. But women, being the physical manifestation of the feminine principle, have been particularly subjugated, right? So we are clearing not just our own shit, not just our ancestral stories, but on behalf of the collective, we're clearing these polarity stories too, and they're fucking deep. And and we're not just, it's like everything must be pulled up and seen and witnessed during this purification process. So we're pulling up stuff with very deep roots right now. So it's patience, it's consistency, it's commitment to this practice, it's a willingness to take ownership, and to look at ourselves with honesty. And it's staying anchored in whatever connects you to love every day, love and faith every single day. That with consistency is changing and has changed my life. Even if my physical reality at the time is not presenting back to me or mirroring back to me what I desire, my consistency to my practices, my consistency like to being a better person, a more awake, aware, embodied person, of my consistency in recognizing that they're just stories and they're not real. And even if they're compelling stories, I don't have to believe them. And choosing to create experiences that show me otherwise, it's slowly shifting things in my life. And I already know that big shifts are happening, like for me personally and within the collective. So just keep doing this work. It's only a matter of time. Um, so that was LH, whose name I did not receive, I don't think. LH. Leslie, sorry, Leslie. So thank you for that, Leslie. The last thing I'm going to answer. This is a this is a comment that I received on my Kundalini Awakening video ages ago from Julian. You said you felt like being held accountable for not taking your mission seriously regarding your Kundalini experience. Did you manage to find your mission, or maybe what you are going to do with the energy in a responsible way? So the last thing I'll probably end with, um, yes, thank you, Cole. Let go of the fear. Your ego is still controlling you. Yes, it is. In that aspect, 100%. Tell your ego to take a step back and listen to your heart touch. I've got good people in my life helping me do that. So I'm on it, Cole. I'm doing it. So that with response in regards to that last question, what I'm realizing about like soul mission and purpose for me personally is that I think when we start awakening, we can kind of want to know what soul mission and purpose looks like, almost like a job description, right? Like it's like, just tell me what my job description is. Tell me what what my role is here in this life, just give me, like, I'm just trying to find the thing, so I've been on like courses and I've done trainings and whatever. I've been and I've worked with guides and shamans and I've been to like all over the planet, and still no one was able to tell me what my purpose or mission was, and I've watched billions of YouTube videos and no one could still tell me what my soul purpose or mission was. And the reason for that is because no one has ever seen what my soul mission or purpose is, because it's never been seen or expressed in the world before. I am the first expression of consciousness in this form, and therefore it's never been seen before. Therefore, no one can tell me what it is, and no one can tell us what it looks like. The world is just mirroring back to us. Like, the world is a mirror, right? Everything is providing contrast. We use the contrast of the external to begin to understand what truth feels like for us, and we just, we listen to this guide. Does that sit well with us? No. Okay, that provides guidance that maybe that's not a truth for us. And then we listen to another guide, and then that hit, okay, that gives us a bit more clarity and truth, and we move more towards that thing. And everything the external is just creating contrast for us to understand what truth is like for us. So what I've realized is that my mission is really just to move from ego to being a conduit for love, and to be a conduit for the highest, to be a conduit for spirit, to empty myself of these egoic concepts like the ones I hold around, um, like for being like, sorry, I read your comment and then I got distracted. I perceived your videos as being excellent for guidance for beginners, people who want to wake. Yeah, that's kind of the intention. And that's the thing. It's like people can use my videos as a way of measuring what truth feels like in their own bodies, right? Because I'm not a monopoly on consciousness. I'm not the be all and end all. I am sharing from my embodied experience. I am a different vantage point of consciousness to anyone else. So what I share may not be the mirror someone else needs to understand and integrate their own truth. So my channel is just another mirror, an opportunity for people to start awakening to and exploring ideas, and then start sampling in their own systems what feels like truth. Oh no, that doesn't sit well. Or, and then if and again, it's either it lands, yes, it excites me, it makes me feel impassioned, or maybe it triggers you, and that's also helping you, because then if my videos or any content triggers you, it's showing you a thread of something that's still anchored in fear and separation that you can clear. So the world is just mirroring back to us either more illumination, to help us expand, or more illumination so we can go deeper into the unconscious work and therefore come back to truth. So with regards to the Kundalini awakening and the guidance I received about like not taking my mission seriously, what I felt that was saying was that I was just still too attached to ego and to my egoic identity of what my path and mission should look like, because I was trying to emulate other people's paths and missions, and therefore I wasn't actually allowing my own soul expression and blueprint to unfold. Because as I said, no one has ever walked my path before. No one has ever been the expression of consciousness before, and no one ever will be again. The same as every single one of you. You're all a unique and pioneering expression of consciousness. So it's like it's yeah, it's like we are no one knows the way home for us. All we can do is support and facilitate experiences and provide mirrors for others so that they can understand what their truth is. And so my mission, I think I've always known that my mission, my greater mission here, is to help people awaken and to move from suffering back to love. And that's because I've experienced that so deeply. And so of course, for me, our greatest challenge becomes our greatest gift. And so yeah, for me it's like, how can I help people understand themselves more clearly? How can I help them to expand their awareness? How can also, a big thing, how can I help the people like me who didn't feel like they belonged? How can I help the black sheep, the star seeds, the people that have come in, who are not here to, they've come into this life with the knowingness that they're not here to be integrated in the matrix. How can I help them feel more assured that they are not wrong or bad, but actually they are essential at this time on earth, and that they are exactly who they need to be. So that's like the greater mission. And what I'm finding is that I am never given the whole journey. And possibly that's because I have a strong mind. And I think spirit is probably aware that if I was given the whole mission at once, and maybe that's the case for most of us, the ego would find too many ways to sabotage it or intercept it or get attached to that timeline and try and manipulate it in some way. And therefore, we would interfere with that organic unfolding. Kind of like what the message you sent me earlier, Julian, right? Like that sense of like, we don't need to necessarily know what's coming. So what I found with mission work is that when I'm connecting to my heart, I'm given just the next breadcrumb, if you like. I'm given the next breadcrumb of where I need to go, of what I need to do. At any one moment, I'm always sensing into multiple timelines. So, like, I can feel a timeline where I'm supposed to go to Egypt. I can feel a timeline where I'm supposed to go to Bali. I can feel a timeline where I need to go to like Glastonbury and do this thing. Like, I can feel timelines in my field. I can feel all these potentialities. And it's like really just trusting in the heart space of like what's deeply needed in this moment. What's the next step? Not like where do I need to be in 5 years? Timelines are changing so quickly right now. It's helpful to know where you want to go in terms of your values and your principles, but in terms of like actualized reality, there's no point getting attached, in my opinion. So now I'm like, what's the next step that spirit's asking of me? What's the next heart longing? What's the next heart desire that wants to be actualized? What's the next aspect that wants to be witnessed? And then whenever I alchemize something from shadow or unconscious, it frees up more space in my field for more clarity to come, so I can receive more intuition, and then that continues the process, right? So I feel like my responsibility with this Kundalini awakening and my awakening experience in general is to alchemize fear, um, and therefore hold more love and be a conduit for that love to help others be anchored in that frequency. And because um my particular journey is one of embodiment, which means that I can't teach anything and I can't know anything. I can learn a lot with my mind, but I can't know anything from a place where I'm willing to share about it until I've embodied it, which means that I have to go through the process myself, which is why I believe I've been given a fair few trials in this life that I've had to move through. And there's been a lot of different types of content that I've had to move through, because I can't teach it unless I know it at the level of feeling, frequency, and energy. I have to know the embodied pathway out, not just like reading a text and hearing a concept and, oh, right, someone else has managed to get out. I have to know the way out. I have had to be in the darkness myself and find the exit myself. Because once I've done that and I've kind of established that pathway, I have a roadmap that I can then teach others, or I can explore um, more deeply, or I can then start to form something that might be helpful for someone else and that I can share from. So yeah, so that's where I am. It's like I'm just, my mission at this point just feels like, how can I align myself with love more, with truth more? How can I empty myself and those egoic stories and identities so that I can just be a clear channel, and so I can be available for the moment to moment guidance, and can I be content with that moment to moment experience of life, of just knowing like in each moment there's a newness, there is a novelty, there is more wisdom to access in the now. Can I be present with it? Can I allow this moment to just guide me to the next moment, to the next moment, to the next moment? Easier in some areas of my life than others, for sure. One other thing that I didn't answer was, Leslie, your question. I think you asked about community. Also, you mentioned having community. Could you tell us how that, um, I don't know what word I've written down there. I'm assuming the question is, how did that happen, right? Like, how did I establish community? Um, how did I establish community? I had to become a vibrational match for it. So, um, there was a point, I'm just trying to think how many years ago it was. Oh, it must have been like 4 or 5 years ago now. There was a point when I was surrounded by women who were nice women by all means. I had a group of friends who were nice women, and I started to awaken, and I felt more and more and more as I was awakening that I was just not. It's like they would talk about mundane things, like, I don't know, spend half an hour talking about what color tile they were going to get on their kit in their kitchen, you know, or the conversation would be shallow. It wouldn't be meaningful, you know. And I was like, I was aching for more. I was aching for more. So my soul was already guiding me away from these women, not in a harsh way, not to be like, you know, fuck you. It was like, we'd had great experiences together. I loved these women. I just recognized that as I elevated my own frequency, I was no longer being you know, a vibrational match for them. And that's not hierarchy. It's just how energy works, right? We're a match for whatever frequency we're holding. So I just was no longer resonant with these women, but I wasn't quite a vibrational match for the women that I wanted to call in. So I always knew from a young age that I was a sensitive soul, that I had like, I was very in touch with my heart center. I wasn't the type that wanted to bitch or, um, you know, like be in that kind of like that really wounded feminine energy, although I was surrounded by a lot of that and I was bullied and you know, I was around a lot of that really unconscious energy, and I just it never sat right with me. And I always knew I wanted something else. I wanted a purer way of connecting with other humans. So once that friendship group dissolved, I did go through a period of being very, very lonely. And in my in my hometown, which is where Milton Keynes, where I keep going to, and then I try to leave, and then I keep being brought back. I spent a fairly prolonged period of time in relative loneliness where I had friends in my field still, but none of them were in my locality physically. They were all over the world. I had like a friend in Edinburgh, a friend in Bristol, a friend in Portugal, a friend in South America. So physically, I was very lonely. And I continued on my path of doing the inner work. I continued to push my comfort zone, like, and I made one thing I find very helpful when we're in those places of stagnation where we want something and we're not finding it in our reality is 11 in the people and the likes. um One thing I find helpful is like, just when we're in those places of stagnation, what can I do to make myself uncomfortable? Like, what am I fearing doing that also excites me? Can I move towards that? Can I put myself in situations that both scare me and excite me at the same time? Because I know that there's growth and expansion in that. Um, so, uh, with the community thing, I kept putting myself out of my comfort zone. I kept doing my inner work. And then I started to get intentional. And this is part of the thing I've realized about manifesting. It's not actually that complicated. We just have to see what it is that we desire. We have to know it, ideally being specific. We have to be able to feel it. We have to be able to connect to it at the level of feeling. We actually have to embody that frequency. And then we have to be open to receiving it. And that's it. So when it comes to manifesting community, I'd set the intention. I started to embody the frequency of like, I want to be in connection. Like, I want to feel love. I don't want to feel this wounded stuff anymore. And I just needed to be open to receiving it. And it really collapsed. I started to draw in more and more people, especially when I joined Instagram. Joining Instagram, for all the things we say about social media, joining Instagram was one of the best things I did for my spiritual growth, because I was so lonely after the Kundalini awakening. I was so lonely. I was so confused. And the women, especially, that I connected with during that year or two after I awakened, they were like lifelines for me. And I joined little groups, meditation groups. I joined a channeling group. I found some friends that spoke light language. Not in contact with all of them anymore, but it was like I found some semblance of community, even though it wasn't exactly what I wanted. I wanted physical community. It was the next step there. It was helping me to feel more safe in community. It was helping me to embody that frequency of community more. So yeah, I set that intention that I wanted to connect with community. I started to live it and embody the frequency of what community would feel like for me. Putting myself in situations that did open my heart, that did connect me with others. And then I just slowly opened myself to receive those people. I started to expand my capacity, right? I've been speaking about this a lot tonight. I expanded my capacity to hold loving friends in my field. I expanded my capacity to receive loving friendships. I worked through that nervous system stuff that maybe felt like I worked through a lot of belonging wounding during that time. Aspects of me that always felt very isolated, very, out of the tribe, sidelined, black sheep like. Those subconscious aspects, if they are not alchemized, if they're still in the background, they're going to be dictating my experience. If there's an aspect of me that's very prominent in my subconscious that says, it's not safe to be in groups because I'm the weirdo, or I'm the one that's different and I don't belong and I'm a burden, or this or that or the other, I'm going to continue to experience that in my reality. So it's like it's just the process of doing the inner work and then simultaneously being open to whatever it is that we intend to receive. Um, so now and it's continuing to grow, the physical community that is coming into my reality. It collapsed from vibration to matter last year very strongly. Was it last year? Let me think. No, started in 2021. Last year it really ramped up, and now it's like I have a really beautiful group of people around me physically, and it's taken quite a while to get there. But I've got a beautiful group of people around me, and it's growing. And what I'm finding is I'm coming into contact with more and more aligned souls who share the same vision as I do, which is to live in conscious community on the land, in nature, in community, in tribes, supporting one another, healing together, leaving, not even investing our time and energy in this matrix bullshit, right? In this fear-based matrix, just choosing to live another way. That's the community that I'm calling in, that level of community, and that's the community that the people I'm aligning with also want. So it's like, again, like attracts like. The vibration that we are emanating is the vibration we receive back to us. And so I want that depth of community. I'm starting to call in more and more friends and people in my community that also want that. And then the power, imagine the power of that shared intention to manifest community, when it's not just me, and then we're all intentionally focusing on creating like community together. I already know it's going to happen. I don't know where, I don't know when, I don't know how. At in this current time space reality, I don't have the resources for that, but I'm just trusting that the breadcrumbs are coming, the right people, the aligned people are coming, and it's all going to unfold as it will. I'm in more and more trust with that. So let me just catch up with the chat. We're nearly 2 hours in. I mean, hats off to everyone that stayed this long, because I talk. Do you recommend learning an astral project? I don't know what you mean by that. Can you elaborate? I don't. Are you talking about astral projection? That's not a speciality of mine. It's not something I've consciously worked on. I can lucid dream to some degree, but I've not done a deep dive into astral projection. If it's calling you, explore it. There's so many resources on astral projection on YouTube. So many meditations you can do to astral project, which I've done some of. Again, because I think I have a very strong mind, I often block my ability to have these experiences. but do it if it's calling you. Just try it. Set the intention to experience what is in your highest and best good, come from love, and just sample it and see what it feels like. Truth is, we are all creators, gods, and human. Yes, absolutely. We are all. This is the madness of it all. We are both the creators and the creation. We're both. Um, this feels like a safe space for anyone who wants to explore their energy, and you feel like an excellent teacher who feels quite welcoming in this world. Thank you. Having human form, having a human experience, absolutely. Breath focus to their heart space and ask the question, tell me what it is I need to know. Are you asking me or yourself, Cole? um, Natasha, what are your opinions on pre-life soul planning? Do you think that is true? Oh, is that, do you mean like the soul intends to have certain experiences in a lifetime? Yes, I do feel that that is true. I do believe that the soul, I believe that the soul is intentional with the incarnation we come into, but the human, having an ego, can exercise free will, and that we can say I came in to learn 5 major lessons in this life. I came in to learn to be a mother, to get rich or accumulate a lot of money and a load of other lessons, right? But if I'm not doing this inner alchemy work and I keep resisting this awakening process, we're all on this journey, whether it happens in this incarnation or the next incarnation or in 10 incarnations. I'm going to learn the lesson. It's the degree of resistance that I build to that is going to determine how long it takes. So if I've come in with 5 lessons that my soul intends for me to learn in this life, um, it depends to the degree to which I'm surrendering to the life lessons that are being presented to me, and to the degree to which I'm being open to receiving those lessons, right? And whether I'm willing to integrate them and alchemize them, or if I'm receiving them and I'm continuing to live from victim consciousness with regards to my life experience, which many do. And this is a touchy subject because I was reading a book the other day, and the woman in it speaks about, she was speaking about how we are all creators of our experience, which I agreed with. She then, in the next chapter, said she had experienced abuse as a child, like a sexual violation as a child, and that children do not create sexual abuse. So anyone that says that a child is the creator of that experience is like, no, no one deserves sexual abuse, basically. So that she was contradicting herself. She said that we create our experience, but children don't create their experience. Having been through sexual abuse as a child and all other sorts of horrible initiations that are not comfortable in form, what I've realized is that if you're only viewing it from the level of the human ego that separates and comes from fear and superiority or inferiority, you're going to hold that view that what happens to you in this life is you're a victim of it. When we're looking at these life initiations that the soul invites us to learn, it requires a higher level of consciousness, or for us to just to look beyond victim paradigms and stories, and to understand and recognize that those very difficult situations are initiations in the human form. If I didn't have a dad that was schizophrenic and that was unstable and unsafe for me as a child, I would not have gone, my parents would not have divorced. I would not have left home when I was 3. I wouldn't have lived in a women's refuge. My mum and I wouldn't have been abused by our neighbours that we moved into a council flat. I wouldn't have moved 5 times in God knows how many years. I wouldn't have experienced these things back to back to back to back to back that created a lot of pain in my childhood. And then that pain seeded a level of disconnect and suffering so deep that led me to awaken. If I didn't have those early life initiations, as hard as they were, I would not have had the drive to awaken. It's it's sad to say it, but most of the time the human will only ever change when it's challenged to change. because we have become and habituated through this fear-based matrix. We've been habituated to become comfortable creatures, to stay in comfortable comfort zones and comfortability and complacency, right? And the ego is only ever content with safety and what it perceives to be safe. So anything that requires us to expand or grow or move or change or transform is going to be uncomfortable for the ego, and we're going to naturally resist it at the human level. So for me, these deep in experiences we have in our lives are initiations for us to awaken at the higher level and to move beyond even the duality and the suffering of this human experience, because it is all of it. This human experience is everything. That's also something I've been really schooled on a lot in the last 2 years. That this human experience has the potential to be heaven on earth, and it's also incredibly painful and heartbreaking and inspires deep grief in the heart. And that is still beautiful. And it also can feel devastating to the human. And it's both. And to me, every experience is just expanding our capacity to hold more love in our field. Yes, in short, I do believe that the soul chooses experiences for us to have. How invested we are in ego and stories that the ego maintains determines whether or not we learn those lessons in this life, or if we've really clung to our ego structures. And I know people like this. My twin, from my twin flame journey, a very illuminated being at his soul level, clinging to a lot of ego structures. Us meeting was a big initiation for him and continues to be, as it was for me. And we've both done a lot of inner work, but I see all the places he still grips and he's unwilling to let go. And I made that decision last year or whenever it was, that it's like technically earlier this year, but I made that decision when our last relationship container dissolved, that I can't wait for him. I'm on this journey. I'm doing this work. I know where I'm going, and I want people that are going there with me. So it's very possible that people can exercise enough free will by being very attached to the ego, and they don't learn the lessons in this life. And that's fine, because what will happen is the suffering they generate from being so attached to their ego will eventually be the very thing that collapses the ego structure. This is self-fulfilling prophecy. So anyway, maybe I'm just chatting shit at this point, but I hope that answers the question. So may love, light, peace, happiness, and divine truth bless all watching now in the future. Thank you, Cole. That's beautiful. Generous spirit, while you are healing yourself, you're supporting to others to heal, as we all are, right? Every single one of us is an expression of the whole. When one of us remembers, we all start to remember. Truly. I see that so much now. That we think that we can't make a change in the world. We can. And we think the change needs to have like a big, it needs to be like this big, flashy, jazzy thing out in the world. It just needs to be within. The people that you can impact in your own network and community just by doing the inner work is already transformative. Right. And then the fact that then you impact them, they're going to impact others from their change frequency. And then one light can light another light, and then that light can light another light. That's what we're here to do. Illuminate ourselves, and that illuminates another. I've had many people illuminate the path for me. So I just want to pay it forward in any way I can. I think once you believe you deserve to be accepted and loved and part of a community that gets you, you create that vibrational match 100%. Yeah. And again, it's like, it's all there in the field. It's all there in the unified field of potential. How embodied we are in that frequency, how aligned we are with that frequency, and how open we are to receiving it are the only barriers. That's it. And if we're not open to receiving it, our job is to clear the blocks and the barriers to receiving. You want to experience such things before you incarnate. It's in your soul contract. Yes. Yeah, the soul has that intention, in my opinion, very strongly. That's been my experience of it anyway. And I've seen within myself that, like, there are lessons and there are themes, and I can try and exercise free will. And I have, I've exercised free will and I've stayed in ego. And then what's happened is my suffering has been compounded. Um, it's like there was like one uncomfortable thing, right? And then my ego was like, yeah, I'm uncomfortable, but I'm not uncomfortable enough to change it. So I'm just going to stay here. So, right, another uncomfortable thing comes along because I'm starting to like still anchor in fear and whatever, right? And then it's like, well, that just builds and then builds and then builds. And then the level of discomfort you feel when you're not in alignment becomes so great that you are forced by the weight of your suffering to make a change. The saying that always comes to me is that, uh, what is the saying? I'm so tired. It came and then it went. Um, like that's it. Your desire to change has to be greater than your desire to remain the same. You have to get to that point in tipping the scales, right? So it's like if you want to stay the same, and that's the heavier frequency in your field, and your desire to change isn't really that strong, you're going to stay the same. If you start having uncomfortable experiences, things that challenge your ego, your desire to stay the same is probably going to diminish because staying the same is causing suffering. And your desire to change is probably going to increase because you're noticing that staying the same isn't changing anything. And so eventually the scales will tip, and your desire to change and experience something new and something that doesn't generate suffering is going to be greater than the desire to stay the same. And then new things, new potentials can collapse into your reality. No worth underground except nothing less. I'm working on it, Cole. So I'm working on it. Um, it's funny because it's like I can feel it's there. I can feel all the potential in the field. I can feel what's come that wants to almost like it's almost like at this point in my journey, it's like my field is pregnant with possibility. Like there's so much potential that wants to come in, and it's just these old ego structures that are like, no, I can't receive it. I'm not worthy of receiving it. It's like they're so deeply rooted in the subconscious that it's like at a conscious level, my mindset, my embodiment, things are changing. Like I smile so much more than I used to. I laugh so much more than I'm used to. I'm so much more grateful than I used to be. I'm so much more present than I used to be. And so I know that these shifts are happening, and it's just a matter of when and not if. Yes, when and not if. Okay. So this has been 2 hours, 7 minutes. It's a long time to stay in a chat. So thank you for everyone that stayed here. Um, I've loved doing a live. It's just so much nicer to know that there are other people, even though we can't all see each other. It's so nice to know that we're all like here, present together. Makes it a much more dynamic experience rather than me just talking to a camera. So thank you for giving me this experience. It's my first live here. Does anyone else have any more questions for me? I only had 4 questions come in that I was answering for today. So does anyone else have anything else that they'd like me to answer before I wrap this up, or anything else they'd like to share? I'll sip my orange juice. Oh, so good. Everyone's quiet in the chat. Are you sleeping? Probably. That's what I need to do as well. Okay. If we haven't got anything else to say or exchange or question or answer, then I'm going to wrap this up. So thank you so much to everyone for being here with me tonight. It's been magic. I'm wishing you all a beautiful solstice, which is in 2 days here in the UK. I'm like, obviously I gave myself concussion and I was out, and then my cat died. So it's been a bit of an intense 6 weeks, but there's a backlog of content that I'm aiming to create and make and put out. So please keep an eye out for that. And as always, like your suggestions help to shape what I produce. So please, I do ask if you've got something specific you'd like me to make a video on, or a light language transmission on. My channel is open. I am starting to like channel light language again, and it's coming through. So if there's some transmission that you'd like, there was one about anger that I said I would do. If there's anything else that wants to come through and that you'd like to direct the energy of, then please. Again, as a projector in human design, I really enjoy human design for this because it's helped to put vocabulary to things that I knew intuitively but I didn't have words for. I I am basically, my strategy is that I work best when I'm invited. When someone asks me to do something, it initiates and opens my energy because I have a penetrating aura and I can see and perceive a lot energetically. Sometimes my presence can feel a bit too much for people and it can feel overbearing. And I'm having to really learn not to, um, what's the word? Like, I used to offer a lot of unsolicited advice, right? And I used to like really push what like I could feel and perceive onto others, and I got a lot of pushback all the time. Like people don't want to know, and so what I'm learning is through human design, my strategy is to wait to be asked by the right people. The people that want the advice from me, the guidance from me, will ask me, Tash, what do you think about this? Rather than me just giving it to the people who are not ready to receive it, who do not want to receive it. It's not my job to interfere with their free will or their sovereignty. It's a big lesson for me. I learned this really hard with the COVID vax, right? I like was learning about what all this technology is that they've rolled out. I knew the nature of it. I knew it was nefarious. I tried to warn people. I really tried to shove my what I was learning and what I knew intuitively down people's throats, and it didn't go down well. And that, I think that was the first one of the first videos I ever put out was when I was going through that Kundalini awakening, I think in 2021, and I had the Lyrans come through. The majestic lion beings came through my channel, and it was like I couldn't stop it. I'd asked for no more, and then they came through, and it was like I was like in a channel for about an hour, and I couldn't stop. And they were really like hammering to me like it's not your place to interfere with free will. Love the people instead of judging their decisions. Trust that they're making the decision that they need at this point for their soul's evolution. It's not your place. Just step back and stop pushing your ideas onto others. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that either. But anyway, thank you so much for this. It was refreshing to hear you talking about all these subjects, and I firmly believe you are a great support for people who crave hope and feeling normal. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Tash, as always. Thank you, Lisa, for being here. And that's what I was saying. Sorry, I got lost in a tangent, didn't I? If you ask me questions, basically, it helps to initiate my energy. So inviting me to share something like, Tash, can you share something about this? Can you do this transmission? Even courses, content, like I want to create, I've got so much in my field that I want to create like a specific program about that's affordable, like I want to create like digital courses and create packages that allow you to access like yoga and breath work and shadow work and the deeper energy work and activations in a program that are affordable. But it's like, where do I start? I could do shadow work, I could do twin flame, I could do understanding the chakras, and there's so much in my head that it's like sometimes I don't know where to direct my energy, so I don't produce anything. So you asking me, Tash, I'd really love it if you could do this thing, it helps me to focus my energy. So really, truly, when I say I'd love you to share with me, I mean it. It helps me because there's a lot going on up here. Thanks as always. Enjoyed listening. Thank you, Connor. Thank you. So many thoughts added on my journal during the session, beginning to open and asking questions for myself. Perfect. That's all we need to do. All we need to do is just ask questions. That to me is the greatest tool we have to do shadow work and to understand the subconscious. It's just asking. And that's the way the consciousness works. When we consciously ask a question, the subconscious mind already starts to generate and search for the answer. And the subconscious is the home of the intuition. So yeah, asking questions is an amazing way of really going deep. There are many people looking for the same thing. Conan, what is the same thing? Is it this, like what we're talking about here today, right? Just awakening. And it's like, I can feel it. Like there's a hunger for this. We need it. And it's just like, how can I just want to help. That's it. I want to help others. I've been through the suffering myself. I know how painful it is. I just want to help people. And it's like knowing how best I can do that. But I trust that it's coming. Like the ways in which I'm here to support people, it will become clear to me. All right, guys. So I'm going to stop blabbering and let you all go to bed if it's bedtime, or eat breakfast if it's breakfast time, or anything in between. It's been such a pleasure. I'm going to do another live soon because I've been wanting to go live for ages, and I'm really glad I did. I've loved this format. I also just want to quickly say thank you, because I did mention at the beginning that this channel reached 1,000 subscribers. This is not about subscribers to me. it's about reaching the people that need this, that again, the people that are going to resonate with my reflections, right? But that my reflections are going to offer something for their soul journey. That's it. That's all I'm driven by. I love creating content. I love YouTube as a format. I love like all the artwork I have to do for the thumbnails. I love it. To me, it's creative. And so I love creating content, and simultaneously it's also fills my heart to know that like my Kundalini Awakening video has got 8,000 views. And I've had so many comments from people saying, thank you for sharing this because it's helped me understand my process better, or you've shared something that I needed to hear or that I've experienced. And that's the thing, right? We're just mirrors for each other. So it's like me just sharing and offering my own wisdom, reflections, insights, the things that I've experienced, embodied, helps others. So thank you for helping me get to 1,000 subscribers and helping me to reach the people that need it. And I trust the people that are here for this channel will find this channel. So your support is greatly appreciated. Brent, oh, hey Brent, just caught the tail end, but jumping in to say thank you for your authenticity and wisdom, and you, brother. So Brent Spirit, if you're not following Brent, Brent has a channel focused purely on the Kundalini, or predominantly on the Kundalini. He's an awesome guide when it comes to the Kundalini. So I really recommend checking out his channel. We're also going to set up a podcast together so we can talk about our experiences with regards to the Kundalini together. So Brent, I'm going to get in touch with you. It's on my long to-do list. So yeah, awesome. All right, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you because I'm like so pumped now. I have to go to bed. Your talk on the Kundalini was one of the best I've heard. Can't wait to chat more. Mwah! So much love, because so much also that the process of the Kundalini is something I really want to share more about on this channel, because my understanding about it has been so much more embodied and has evolved so much from when I even shared that initial video. So I'm looking forward to sharing more about that process too. I'm much less of a victim of that process now than I was when I first shared that video. So all right, guys, lots of love to you all. Sending so much love from my heart, so much gratitude. And I'm so grateful and honored to be on this journey with you all. Lots of love, and I will catch you in the next one.